I guess the difference is this. Ultimately, is God a something or a nothing? And it's a problem, right? You can't say he's a something, but then you can't say he's a nothing.
Yeah. We can, depends which perspective you're looking at it from. Yeah.
There's a comedian, I don't know if you saw it. He says, there are people who believe in God, but then people believe that God is nothing. So where do they think the world came from? From nothing. Oh.
It's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're so much smarter because they think the world came out of nothing. That makes any sense. What do you think of this idea? Final idea. We say yesh ma'ayin. The world came out of nothing.
Right.
But then there's a whole explanation. Why are we referring to God as nothing?
Right.
With many good explanations. But wouldn't it be just as rational to say the world came out of everything? God is everything. And yet, he selected out this particular something from everything. And now you have a finite world with finite whatever. So the miracle of creation is, how did everything become a something? The answer is tzimtzum. That makes perfect sense. You went from everything to a limited something. That is tzimtzum. Then the question is, if you're really coming from everything and you become a something, are you really a something or are you still really everything? Isn't that just as good as saying nothing? Comes from nothing, it's still nothing. It's no thing, it's everything. So here we went from God who is essentially nothing to God who is essentially everything. Because what is he not? Ed is Alts, and therefore Alts is Ed. I think these are fundamental issues in Emunah. People who have a hard time are the people who have learned a lot but not quite enough. So they're at that point where God is about to become a nothing. And then we come along and say, no. There's something vibrant happening in him himself. He doesn't fade to black. Which is, I don't know, I think it's pretty essential.
Sounds like you're saying that there are those who, based on their understanding of Torah, come to the conclusion that Hashem is without really any description or character or features.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that you can understand why somebody would say that, because after all, we cannot limit Hashem, and that's probably where that resistance comes from. You want to say this about Hashem, and you're limiting Hashem. And I think that people who have those misgivings, it's coming from a sincere place,
Yeah.
Generally speaking. They don't want to make Hashem finite.
Hmm.
Like, you were saying earlier that if you talk about love, so it's love, not hate. So you don't want to say Hashem is love, because then he's this, not that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you hear where those apprehensions are coming from. It's to avoid limiting Hashem,
which is, ironically, the ultimate limit. He can't be this, he can't be that. He can't. I have a suspicion that a lot of this, I'm not talking about today's scholars, but for many, many years, this seemed to be the approach. And I have a suspicion that it's a reaction to Christianity. God incarnate in a body? No! And then we went overboard. So it's not, he is not limited to love. He can't really love. When he says he loves, it doesn't mean love. He doesn't really love. Because it's making him sound too much like a Christian God. So in trying to make him not sound human, we turned him into less than human. Right? He's not a mensch. He doesn't care, he doesn't see, he doesn't feel, he doesn't cry, he doesn't laugh. What do you end up with?
Okay, but you can understand, you described where that approach might come from. So,
and there's some pretty
it's a valid
convincing
concern.
quotes. Rambam makes it so clear you cannot attribute any human characteristic. He is not a body, he doesn't have the form of a body, he doesn't have the nature of a body. Doesn't that sound like it's anti-Christian?
You're saying historically, whether it was a veiled refutation of Christianity, it sounds like that's what it's coming to negate, yes.
Yeah.
Although the Ravid says that it's not necessarily abgefrekt.
That
The corporeality of God.
because you
states
can't
it as
say
a given.
no, right? Because you can't say no to God. You can't say no. You can't be in a body. You can't be restricted by a body.